Byzantine Empire stood as the Eastern Roman Empire, a living continuation of Rome after the fall of the West. While Western Europe plunged into darkness, Constantinople gleamed with wealth, culture, and military power. Its walls, rising above the Bosporus, became symbols of endurance. From Justinian's dream of reconquest to centuries of survival, the empire carried Roman law, Greek culture, and Christian faith into the Middle Ages. In this fragile balance, Byzantium emerged not only as a state, but as a fortress of civilization against chaos.
In the 6th century, Emperor Justinian sought to restore the lost glory of Rome. His armies marched west, reclaiming Italy, North Africa, and parts of Spain. Guided by his brilliant general Belisarius, Byzantine legions fought Gothic and Vandal foes in brutal campaigns of medieval warfare. At home, Justinian ordered the codification of Roman law, shaping justice for centuries. The Hagia Sophia, with its immense dome, rose above Constantinople as a monument to faith and imperial power. Yet his ambition strained resources, leaving the empire vulnerable to new waves of enemies.
The glory of Justinian's reign did not last. In 541, Constantinople was struck by the plague, killing hundreds of thousands. The city's streets echoed with the sound of carts carrying the dead. Wealth drained, armies weakened, and provinces slipped away. The Byzantine Empire faced exhaustion, even as enemies pressed harder along its borders. The dream of restoring Rome faded. Yet Constantinople, guarded by its impregnable walls, endured. Though diminished, the Eastern Roman Empire proved resilient, clinging to survival when others collapsed. In the 7th century, new powers rose from the deserts of Arabia. The armies of Islam surged across the Middle East, crushing Persia and advancing into Byzantine lands. Damascus, Jerusalem, and Egypt fell. Twice, massive Arab fleets and armies besieged Constantinople, threatening the heart of the empire. Yet the Byzantines unleashed a terrible weapon, Greek fire. This liquid flame clung to water and ship alike, burning enemy fleets. Through courage and innovation, Constantinople withstood the storm, securing the empire's survival against overwhelming odds. By the 9th century, the empire revived under the Macedonian dynasty. Emperors like Basil I and Leo VI strengthened the state, codified laws, and expanded its frontiers. Constantinople flourished as the wealthiest city of medieval history, a hub of trade linking Europe and Asia. Churches glittered with mosaics, scholars preserved ancient texts, and the empire projected power once again. Though threats remained, Byzantium proved capable of rebirth, rising from crisis to stability. This era marked not only survival, but a true renaissance of the Eastern Roman Empire. To strengthen the empire,
Byzantine emperors recruited fierce warriors from the north. These Norsemen, known as the Varangian Guard, swore loyalty to Constantinople. Armed with massive axes, they became the emperor's personal bodyguards. Their fearsome presence inside the palace sent a clear message. Any threat to the throne would be met with brutal force. The Varangians embodied the empire's ability to absorb outsiders, turning enemies into protectors. For centuries, they stood as a symbol of Byzantine power, guardians of the imperial legacy.
Among Byzantium's greatest emperors was Basil II. His reign in the 10th and 11th centuries saw relentless wars against the Bulgars. Patient, disciplined, and ruthless, Basil crushed his foes. After a decisive victory at the Battle of Clydion, he blinded thousands of prisoners, sending them home in terror. Feared and respected, Basil expanded the empire's frontiers and filled its treasury. Under his iron hand, the Byzantine Empire reached a height of medieval power, proving that discipline and endurance could still preserve its might.
Yet even as Byzantium thrived, new threats emerged. From the east came the Seljuk Turks, skilled horse archers who brought fresh waves of medieval warfare. In 1071, the empire suffered disaster at the Battle of Manzikert. The Emperor Romanos IV was captured, and Asia Minor, the empire's heartland, was lost. Villages burned, fortresses fell, and the empire reeled from the shock. Byzantium had faced crises before, but the Seljuk victory marked a turning point. For the first time, its survival seemed uncertain.
Desperate after Manzikert, Byzantium appealed to the West for aid. The call sparked the First Crusade. Armies of knights and pilgrims poured into Constantinople, pledging to fight for Christendom. Yet mistrust lingered between the Eastern Roman Empire and the Latin Crusaders. Together, they reclaimed Jerusalem, but tensions simmered. Still, the crusade bought Byzantium precious time. For a brief moment, Constantinople stood at the crossroads of medieval history, the city that united East and West in a common cause. But trust soon shattered. In 1204, the Fourth Crusade, meant to fight Muslims, instead turned against Constantinople. Latin knights stormed the city, looting its treasures, burning its churches, and desecrating Hagia Sophia. The Byzantine Empire was torn apart, replaced by a Latin kingdom. For half a century, Constantinople lay under foreign rule. Icons, relics, and wealth were carried away to the west. This was one of Byzantium's darkest hours, a wound that never fully healed.
In 1261, the Byzantines struck back. Michael VIII Palaiologos recaptured Constantinople, restoring the empire after decades of humiliation. The people wept with joy as the cross once more rose over Hagia Sophia. Yet, the empire he inherited was a shadow of its former self. Provinces were lost, walls crumbled, and the treasury was empty. Still, the restoration proved Byzantium's resilience. Even after devastation, the Eastern Roman Empire survived, carrying its torch into the final centuries of medieval history.
The restored empire faced relentless enemies. In the west, rising powers like Venice and Genoa fought for control of trade. In the north, Serbs and Bulgars tested the empire's weakened borders. From the east, the advancing Turks pressed into Byzantine lands. Constantinople, once the center of a mighty empire, shrank to a besieged city-state. Yet the walls still stood, and behind them the spirit of the Eastern Roman Empire endured. Survival became Byzantium's only strategy.
By the 14th century, a new power emerged, the Ottomans. Fierce and disciplined, they carved through Anatolia and the Balkans, swallowing Byzantine lands one by one. Constantinople became surrounded, its empire reduced to fragments. The emperors sought alliances, pleading for aid from the West, but mistrust lingered after the Fourth Crusade. The Byzantine Empire had endured Arab sieges, Crusader betrayal, and internal strife, but the Ottoman advance loomed as a final test of survival. The Palaiologos emperors ruled over a fading realm. They walked among ruins of once mighty palaces, their court diminished, but their dignity intact. Scholars continued to copy ancient manuscripts, keeping alive the wisdom of Greece and Rome. The people of Constantinople clung to faith, their churches filled with prayer for deliverance. Though small in power, the Byzantines still saw themselves as Romans, the heirs of a 1,000-year empire. Their survival was no longer about conquest, but about honor and endurance.
In 1453, the final act began. Sultan Mehmed II, called the Conqueror, marched with a massive Ottoman army. Cannons thundered against Constantinople's walls, the largest siege weapons of medieval warfare. For weeks, the city resisted. Byzantine soldiers and citizens fought desperately, repairing breaches by torchlight. Priests carried relics through the streets, blessing defenders. Yet food dwindled, morale sank, and the empire's last hope faded. Constantinople, jewel of the Eastern Roman Empire, stood on the edge of ruin.
On May 29, 1453, the Ottomans launched their final assault. Waves of soldiers stormed the battered walls. Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos fought with his men, refusing to flee. Sword in hand, he vanished into the chaos, becoming legend. By dawn, the crescent flag flew over Hagia Sophia. The city of Constantine had fallen. After more than 1,000 years, the Byzantine Empire ended. Its survival story finally closed by Ottoman conquest.
Though the empire fell, its legacy endured. Byzantine scholars carried ancient texts westward, fueling the Renaissance. Orthodox Christianity spread to Russia and the Balkans, shaping cultures for centuries. Constantinople's memory lived on in law, art, and faith. The Byzantine Empire may have collapsed, but it had kept civilization alive through medieval history, bridging the fall of Rome and the dawn of modern Europe. Its survival, against all odds, changed the course of history. The Theodosian walls, once thought unbreakable, stood scarred but eternal. For 1,000 years they had turned back Goths, Persians, Arabs, and Bulgars. Only the thunder of Ottoman cannon finally brought them down. They remain today, silent ruins, a reminder of a city that stood as the world's bulwark. Constantinople's defenses were more than stone. They were the embodiment of a civilization's will to endure. The Byzantine Empire's greatness was not measured only in conquest, but in survival. For over a millennium, it endured storms that shattered kingdoms and dynasties. While others rose and fell, Byzantium adapted, redefined, and resisted. It preserved the torch of Rome, even as the medieval world shifted around it. In the end, its true legacy was endurance itself, the empire that outlived its rivals through faith, resilience, and willpower. The Byzantine Empire was the longest-lasting medieval empire, the bridge between antiquity and modernity. Born from Rome, tested by centuries of medieval warfare, and ended by the Ottomans, it shaped the destiny of Europe and the Near East. Constantinople's story was one of triumph, tragedy, and survival against all odds. Today, its echoes remain in art, law, faith, and memory. Byzantium lives on, not as a fallen empire, but as a symbol of resilience across the ages.